Sometimes great things begin in very small locations. In front of you is a little museum dedicated to Eleftherios Venizelos. Now, this is a gentleman who in 1905, in a village called Teriso, began a revolution. And this place was the headquarters. Why am I telling you about the gentleman? Well, you'll find out very soon how important he is for the local population.
But let's take one step at a time. First of all, we have to reach Teriso itself. Now, the very nice mountains you see in the background, that's where the town, or village actually, to be specific, and that's where it's located. Now, the road itself, I think, is most definitely worth viewing, and you'll see bits and pieces of it, but of course, it's more about Venizelos himself. Now, actually, even before coming to Crete, when we were having a look at, for example, Google Maps, most of the avenues were Venizelos. Then you can see all the monuments around. So we started digging, and it turns out that in Chania, and here let me just quickly tell you that from Chania we don't have any footage because those were the first days, and I was a bit too shy to do anything. And yeah, that was the holiday time, so let's have it that way. Well, basically, there is a villa, his old villa, which is now a museum. So we went there, very interesting, and we decided to actually have a longer clip about him. Now, as you can see, I guess the road to go there isn't exactly widest, and it is indeed in the mountains. So if anybody has a bit of vertigo, that may be not the best idea to go through there, especially as a driver. Of course, we encountered the typical little villages with even wider streets, but also another typical thing when you're driving around the mountains in Crete, you're gonna have those guys. So here they are. But just before descending to Teriso itself, one more little panorama, and this is it. Like, when you're in Crete, every single day you're getting panoramas better than the previous one. It is pretty incredible. But enough of the panoramas, let's go down to Teriso.
20s of the 19th century, Greece wins the independence war. Greece becomes independent, but not as we know it today. Not even half of today's Greece became independent. Crete, for example, didn't belong to Greece. So for 100 years, there were many different uprisings and revolutions here. Even in Teriso itself, where we are right now, already 1821, during the original War of Independence, there was a guy crushed here for being too rebellious. So then you've got a streak of other rebellions, and comes 1905. Actually, late 19th century, Crete becomes semi-independent. One of the revolutions is a bit of a miracle, really. Ottoman Empire officially still holds Crete, but there is a prince, son of King of Greece himself, who is kind of a commissioner on the side of the great powers. And here comes the famous Venizelos. He is 1905 leader of another revolution, but this time not against Turks only, but against the prince himself. The thing is, Venizelos was a liberal. He wanted democracy, and he wanted union with Greece as a democratic country. But here is an issue. Great powers do not want to have a problem with the Ottoman Empire, so eventually the revolution, starting in such a little town, did win something. The prince is gone. Venizelos is the true leader now, and he writes a new constitution, a liberal one. He becomes a minister of foreign affairs and justice, but he's the true head of state, really. And during his reign, this semi-autonomous Cretan state, well, for example, there's huge investment in road building, in public health, in public education, and basically during this time as one of the, or the leader of Crete, Venizelos shown himself to be a true leader and a true politician. So eventually, the continental Greece actually invited him to come and serve as Prime Minister of Greece itself. Hence, Venizelos is one of the people responsible for a great coalition of little Balkan states who started fighting against the Ottoman Empire again, what we know today as the Balkan Wars. The result, Greece is twice as big, and then Crete, finally, after 100 years of waiting, becomes a part of Greece as well. So that's a little introduction, so to speak, but we're going to have more on Venizelos very soon.
Before we continue, let me show you the place where I have most of the photos from. There is a little museum in what used to be the headquarters of the revolution itself. When I say little, here it is. It is indeed little, and it used to be even smaller at the time of the revolution. Well, here you are. That's how small the house was. Anyway, the museum, if you kind of walk around it, it's basically you have 5-10 minutes really. Of course, if you start reading everything, it is going to take longer, and we did, of course, read everything. So I think it was 30-40 minutes. Anyway, you've got some interesting things. For example, a photo of the kids of Venizelos from the time of the revolution. Of course, many other things, including a bit of art. But let's continue moving. So here's the thing. When we were planning, it was supposed to be the day of Venizelos only. Let's focus on one theme. There is another very interesting theme that we are going to cover very soon. So let's consider the surprise that we encountered on the way as a little trailer. We saw a sign showing us there is a war museum. So we decided, well, why not? Let's find out what it may be. So we decided 4 kilometers. Let's take the right. But it's very interesting that you go to a museum and the road is getting worse and worse. And of course, our lovely sheep again, because why not? Well, what came next was a bit of a surprise.
So here we have very old olive trees, officially even 2,000 or 4,000 years old. Well, I mean, probably not. Although, for example, the one here is rather impressive. Now the thing is, that's not the impressive part here. The impressive part is that what we basically saw was there's a museum of a resistance battle during the Second World War. What it really is, it's a little hut where a family started just accumulating things like rifles or like helmets or anything they found in the vicinity. And the owner of the museum was very hospitable, so not only gave us a little tour, but also a half-liter bottle of homemade wine. So you're going to see a couple of bits and pieces now, but this is a beautiful thing about having our Zorba. We can go to all those random places with all those random encounters.
So here's one for the road, and let's get back on track.
Now here is a little park with this statue behind me. So we are not in a park, we are in a very important place, the Venizelos graves. So here actually we should have started if we were to follow chronology. Our dear Venizelos was actually born near Chania, so on Crete, but his family already had some revolutionary inclinations. They had to flee after one of the revolutions, so he was born here but raised on one of the islands. Basically, he comes back eventually and becomes very soon a liberal politician. Then comes 1896-7. So at the time Crete had autonomy, but it was part of the Ottoman Empire. So Greek Christians here had autonomy. Well, nobody really was happy about it. Greek Christians wanted to simply have unity with Greece, and Muslims here, they felt marginalized in their own country, as they felt. So of course, there are rebellions. Ottoman Empire sends forces, more rebellions, more soldiers, and so on and so forth. Eventually, massacres of Christians started in Chania, Rethymno, The answer is an actual uprising. And Venizelos quickly becomes one of the most important people in it. And the problem is, it's not simply an internal affair of Ottoman Empire or Greece. The great powers are here, and they don't like the rebellion. So there was a fleet under an Italian admiral who came here to deal with it. Venizelos doesn't want to end it, and pretty much on the hill where we are, I'm guessing where the statue is behind me, they raised a Greek flag. So the Italian admiral gave orders to bombard it, and they started bombarding the whole hill. Eventually both the mast and the flag were hit. And then one of the comrades of Venizelos, he rose the flag again. He became the pole for it. And seeing that, the Italian admiral, in admiration, decided to stop the bombing. So that's the official legend. How true it is it? I don't know, but I'm very skeptical about such issues. So I found a little thing saying that actually Venizelos already in his youth started showing great diplomatic courage. He wrote a letter officially to the admirals. In reality, it leaked to the press in the West, and Western press started reading about Christian admirals bombing Christian Greeks who want to have independence from Ottoman Empire. That doesn't sound very well, does it? So probably that's the true reason, or it is one of the true reasons why the bombing stopped, and eventually the uprising actually won. This is how Crete got its practical independence. Prince George, son of King George from Greece, came here to rule pretty much as an independent ruler. Now, you know already, we've been to 30, so that didn't go down well with Venizelos. So we had another revolution, but in the end, this is the very place where his career started. Now, there's much more to say about him, but that's not the right time and place. He basically moved to Athens and became, well, a very important figure in Greece politics. So that's maybe for another visit. But there's a villa where he used to live here in Chania, and it became a museum. Unfortunately, it's not possible to take photos there or video anything. But mind you, he was a very controversial figure. So, for example, the Orthodox Church placed an anathema on him as a liberal. He wanted separation of powers, so the church from the state. And there were 2 assassination attempts, at least. And from all of those events, there are things to see in the museum. So if you come here, that's definitely worth visiting. And because this is the place where his career started, this is also the place where they decided to bury him, hence Venizelos graves, with great views on Chania. So now a nice little park when locals hang around. But enough of the difficult topics. For the end of the day, let's have something very, very different. What's that beautiful thing behind me? Those, my friends, are barrels of beer ready to roll out. Yep, after all the historical, political, difficult issues and questions, it is time to get some rest. And of course, when I say Greece or Crete, you're probably thinking wine, maybe ouzo, maybe metaxa. Well, the craze of craft beer is here as well. So this is, I don't think, only one anymore, but that's officially kinda the first craft brewery. And there's a tour. Let's take it, obviously with the obligatory tasting at the end.
And here they are, 5 different beers ready to go. But the thing is, came a cat, drank all our beer, and then completely drunk fell asleep. So that's the end of the story. Hehe. Anyway, joking aside, when you are traveling around Crete, do be on the lookout for the Charma beer. It is always worth helping out the local craft industry. But we are heading home because the next day the topic will be even more difficult and even larger. Well, let me just say good night now.